All right, it's time to go over our NFL season predictions. And let's start with the AFC North, where I have the Ravens going 13-4, finishing first in the entire AFC. They simply have the best secondary in all of football, and their offense is elite, obviously. Definitely going to be a bounce back year with new head coach and Jesse Minter, rejuvenized culture. I feel pretty confident about this one. Now, number two, we have the Bengals going 11-6 and finishing as the sixth seed in the AFC. Their offensive line still sucks. Hopefully, Joe Burrow stays healthy. I believe he will, but there's also just a good chance that he gets injured again. But again, I do think this prediction is based off of him staying healthy, and when he is healthy, this team wins. The defensive line is so much improved from last year. I'm really looking forward to watching that. And Chase Brown is due for a huge year, so I do think Bengals sneak into the playoffs this year. At number three, we have the Steelers going 9-8. They missed the playoffs, but they still have that classic 9-8 winning record. Haven't had a losing season in over a decade. I still think that continues. The offense is just awful at this point, and I don't believe in Coach McCarthy whatsoever. Defense, it's top five when everyone's healthy and balling out, but that rarely happens with this team. Usually Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, one of those guys gets injured at some point, Joey Porter Jr. I'm sure it'll happen again. No defense stays completely healthy, but for them it's a little bit worse than usual. Then the Browns come in at number 4, going 4-13. Yeah, they're just bad, man. They do have a good run game. I love Judkins and Dylan Sampson. Verse is going to be a standout on the defensive side of the ball, but this team is still at least 2 years away from being a playoff contender, in my opinion. Moving on to the AFC West, we have the Chiefs going 13-4, finishing second in the AFC. I do think this is Kelsey's last ride, final season, and it's looking like Mahomes is going to be ready week 1, which is huge. Defense is actually kind of scary. I love how they're looking, and I love Spags as a defensive coordinator. They're going to win close games this year. Dynasty, unfortunately, is still alive and strong. You just never doubt Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Last year was a fluke year. They're going to be back on top of the football world for sure. At number 2, we have the Los Angeles Chargers going 9-8 and barely sneaking into the playoffs with the 7th seed. New RPO heavy scheme is going to be interesting to watch. I think it's going to work. There's a chance that it doesn't, but again, that's week 1. I'm going to be locked into Chargers offense and how they're looking. Healthy Joe Alt also helps a ton. I think he can become a top-tier offensive lineman, even though he missed almost all last year. The defense, it's solid enough to get them back to the playoffs. I'm not crazy about them. And then at number 3, we have the Denver Broncos going 9-8 and missing the playoffs. I'm a bit surprised that I didn't have them in the playoffs because there's no reason to put them out. But again, predicted every single game that's going to happen this season. This is just how it turned out. I'm not a huge Bo Nix guy. I don't think he's going to get much better. The people who fantasize about him, they just piss me off. Again, they could prove me wrong, but I just do not see the ceiling that some Broncos fans think he has. Questionable run game. Hearing a lot of good things about Jonah Coleman, but as far as Dobbins and Harvey, how that's all going to shake out, I'm not crazy about the running back room. Still love the offensive line and defense, but they need to add more, in my opinion, to retain their elite play from last year. And then last in the AFC West, we have the Raiders going 6-11, missing the playoffs, but they have the makings of a really good team. Genty should take a jump, especially with Linderbaum on the team. Keeping Max Crosby is huge for them. Obviously, the weak spot is wide receiver. They need a ton of help there, but they're not too far away from being a good team. Moving on to the NFC East, we have the Philadelphia Eagles going 13-3-1. Yes, I predict ties. I'm crazy. Sue me. I don't care. First in the NFC East, first in all of the NFC. There's no holes in this roster. I'm a huge fan of Hurts and Sirianni. I think they're both underrated and overhated. Mekhi Lemon, think he's going to have a huge season. Interior defensive line is filthy. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell is also just filthy. I can't believe everyone's asleep on them. If you are a bettor, Eagles have some great betting odds right now. Go place a bet on them to win the division, make it to the conference championship, hell, win the Super Bowl. That could pay off big time. And also, Howie Roseman, as a GM, my mind and his mind are very aligned in the draft. I just think he's one of the best GMs in all of football. In second place, we have the New York football Giants at 8-9, missing the playoffs. Injury-prone offense is the biggest worry. Definitely have playoff potential, but I need to see it to believe it. Young defense is great. That's pointing in the right direction for sure. I think next year they could absolutely be a sleeper team. But, I think 1 year away, and they need to get healthy first. At 3, we have the Commanders going 7-9-1, missing the playoffs. Their defense is so weak. Their offensive line with Laramie Tunsil out, I don't trust it. Not the greatest. I think the team that was there for Jaden Daniels' rookie year was a fluky season. Great run, but I think that was very misleading in terms of where they're at as a franchise. And then lastly, we have the Cowboys going 7-10, missing the playoffs. They have that top-tier talent offensively and defensively, but they're just injury-prone, and they lack depth. So if they go down, it hurts them more than when other star players on other teams go down. So it's just kind of a recipe for disaster, but they're overrated every year. I'm really excited to watch Caleb Downs, but unfortunately, everyone's high on the Cowboys and they disappoint. It's not going to change this season. Next, in the NFC North, we have my Chicago Bears winning the division, going 12-5, finishing second in the NFC. The Bears are legit. Everyone can stay asleep. You watched them last year. We have an MVP talent, QB, phenomenal weapons, top 5 offensive line, great play callers and coaching, and an above-average defense. Quite literally, what more can you ask for in a Super Bowl contender? You can't. Simple as that. At number 2, we have the Minnesota Vikings going 10-7, finishing 6th in the NFC. You're getting the 6th seed in the playoffs. Kyler, I think, does rejuvenate this offense. The running game might be the worst in all of football. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, Claiborne, that does not do it for me. They will need to trade for someone else at the deadline. But Brian Flores, in my opinion, he's a top 2 defensive coordinator, with Spags obviously being the other one. And this team is overlooked, and I think they have a massive chip on their shoulder to prove that, they're a contender in their eyes, and I think they're not far off, honestly. At number 3, we have the Detroit Lions going 10-7, finishing as the 7th seed in the NFC. Aiden Hutchinson back this year is huge, obviously. Gibbs, breakout year, could go for 2,000 yards, who knows. This is just a high-floor team. Even if they don't reach their ceiling, I'm pretty confident that the Lions are going to find a way to make the playoffs. And then lastly, I do have the Packers going 9-7-1, missing the playoffs. I hate that I have them missing the playoffs because they're a top 10 team in terms of true talent. Wow, that's an alliteration. Say that 5 times fast. But just based on how their schedule is aligned, I have them missing, and I know that seems so biased as a Bears fan, but I promise you, I try my best not to be because I hate the fans who are biased. Um, Coach LaFleur, he can't win close games. We don't know when Micah Parsons is coming back. There's a lot of unknowns with this Packers team. But again, if they put it all together, they could easily win the Super Bowl. So it's a bold take. I don't like it, but I'm going to stay true to it. And, this is my receipt. Come back to this at the end of the season and see how it ages. Moving on to the AFC East, we have the Patriots finishing first at 12-5, getting the third seed in the AFC. Drake May to A.J. Brown is going to be a movie. Christian Gonzalez and their defense will be legit. I do think that's a top 10 defense. Not worried about the Mike Vrabel offseason drama. He's a good coach. He's not going to let that affect his play calling or, the team morale. In my opinion, though, they need to give the ball to Travion Henderson over Ramondre Stevenson. Reports are saying that's not going to be the case yet again. I think that's stupid, but obviously I'm not the coach. Not my call. Coach knows better than me. At number 2, we have the Buffalo Bills going 11-6, finishing as the 5 seed in the AFC. New year, same story for them. Allen, he's going to have an MVP year yet again. Defense underperforms. Same song and dance. The Jets finishing third in the division, going 6-11. No playoffs for them, but they have tons of talent. Awful coach. I'm not a fan of Aaron Glenn as a head coach, but they're not far away from being good. They just need to replace the coach, even coaching staff, and get that franchise QB. At number 4, we have the Dolphins going 4-13, missing the playoffs. Willis and Achane, I don't mind that as a quarterback and running back duo. I do think they're both pretty versatile, and I think they're both somewhat underrated. Chris Johnson, one of my guys in the draft, I think he's going to ball out. Jacob Rodriguez, I think he's also going to get opportunity to ball out. So there are some bright spots, but man, this team has so many holes. They have to fill a lot of positions in order to contend with any teams. They're one of the worst teams in all of football, a very low ceiling. Even if they play their best, they're finishing last. AFC South, we have the Texans going 11-6, finishing as the 4 seed in the AFC. I think CJ Stroud does improve this year. Unfortunate Jaden Higgins got injured, but I think other than that, if this wide receiver room can stay healthy, it's actually pretty underrated. Love Nico Collins, Jalen Noel, very good. Tank Dell, absolute monster as a returner and has some upside as a receiver. Xavier Hutchinson, they have some guys that are good at football. That sounds bad, but I'm not mad at their wide receiver room. And then obviously the defense is stacked. And that's what's going to carry them to this division win. At number 2, we have the Jags going 7-10, missing the playoffs. The defense is awful for the Jags. I think it's massively overrated. I don't believe in the run game. Everyone's hyping up Bajal Tutin, including the coaches. I was out on Devon Achane when this was the same case for him. So maybe history is repeating itself and I'm in the wrong again, but I truly just don't see it with Tutin. Trevor Lawrence is going to have to carry in this offense minus the run game. The passing game will have to carry, and they can, but I don't want to say last year is a fluke because I like Liam Cohen, but I definitely expect regression with this team, at least as far as the record goes. At number 3, we have the Colts going 6-11, missing the playoffs. Daniel Jones' mobility, that's the huge question mark. Jonathan Taylor still is going to carry the offense, be the primary target, primary scorer. Defensively, very high ceiling, very low floor. That's another huge question mark. The trade for Sauce, that looks pretty bad, but pretty difficult team to predict, but I'd be pretty shocked if they make the playoffs. At number 4, we have the Titans going 4-13, no playoffs. I just hate their roster construction. I'm not a fan of Saleh as a head coach. He is a much better defensive coordinator than an actual head coach. And just a poorly managed organization. I'm not a huge Cam Ward guy. Their defensive moves kind of mind-boggling. Moving on from T'Vondre Sweat, L'Jarius Sneed. I'm so out on the Titans. Then we move to the NFC West, where I do think the Rams will finish 11-6 and the 3 seed in the NFC. I think they're a better team than their record shows, but they have a really hard schedule this year. They need to improve on the offensive line at the deadline, or they could just start one of my favorite players in the entire draft, Keegan Trost, one of the biggest steals in the past decade. I hope he proves me right if given the opportunity. At number 2, we have the Seahawks going 10-7 as the 5 seed in the NFC. They definitely lost a lot of talent, but they're just a well-oiled machine with Coach McDonald. Witherspoon, in my opinion, I think he breaks out this year as the best cornerback in the league. But hypothetically, like if an injury to JSN happens, that could absolutely tank their chances at getting back to the playoffs. At number 3, we have the Niners going 9-8, missing the playoffs. Health is wealth, and they have a very tough schedule. There's just too much uncertainty with this team, so I just can't have them winning games that they shouldn't, because I don't know who's going to be on the field. So they're the odd man out of the playoffs here. Number 4, we have the Cardinals going 3-14, worst team in all of football, in my opinion. The offense has talent, for sure. You can't deny that. But they're going to sell at the deadline. I 100% expect Budda Baker on defense, the safety, to be on a different team by trade deadline. And that leaves the defense even worse, and it's already probably the worst defense in the league. They're also in the toughest division, playing the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners twice a year. That's brutal. That sucks. They should and will tank for the number 1 overall pick. That's the end of that. Last division before the playoff predictions will be the NFC South. Terrible prediction, or terrible division. The Saints, I have them going 8-1, winning it, getting the 4 seed in the NFC. The Tyson injury hurts, but he'll come back, and he's still going to be very impactful. I do think they have one of the most underrated secondaries in all of football. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jonas Sanker, Quincy Riley. I really like that big 3 as these up-and-coming, young, hungry, just absolute dogs. The revamped rushing attack. I know Kamara's hurt. Devin Neal, I like him still. But Travis Achan, I think, fits perfectly in the Saints offense. And then they have an experienced front 7 on defense. There's enough there for me to be like, hey, you know what? I think the Saints can sneak by and win the division this year. And then in second, we have the Buccaneers going 7-10, missing the playoffs. Ruben Bain and the Baker Mayfield passing game connection with Emeka Egbuka. That's pretty much this whole team's identity at this point. Vita Vea did re-sign, which is huge. I was worried that they were going to trade him, which would have really hurt their team. But defensively, other than him and Antoine Winfield, it's pretty bad. And hot take here, bold prediction, this bad season on a Baker free agent year is going to have Baker leave the Bucs. He's going to be on a different team next year, and this will lead to a massive Bucs rebuild. Third place, we have the Carolina Panthers going 5-10-2, 2 ties. Why would you predict that? Well, it's because they are the most difficult team for me to pinpoint. Have them missing the playoffs, and do I trust their playoff game against the Rams last year? No. I want to. But again, that proves that this team has a very high ceiling, but I also think this team has a very low floor. I need to see it to believe it with them. I'm still trying to wrap my head around where I think they're going to finish this season, but put it out there now. My prediction is 5-10-2, somewhere between 5 and 7 wins, roughly. And then last place is the Atlanta Falcons, going 5-12, missing the playoffs. The injuries to their young edge rushers is terrible. I like both those guys. Sucks for them. And I have no faith in Penix and Tua. I really did like Penix coming out of the draft, but at this point, I don't know, man. I'm starting to lose the vision. Bijan and their DBs are the only bright spots. Which means now we are going into the playoff predictions. And first game of the wild card is the Seahawks beating the Saints, 5-4. Saints just don't really have a chance in that game. And then in the 3-6 matchup, we have the Rams beating the Minnesota Vikings. And I do think this will actually be a close game. But at the end of the day, this type of game will come down to turnovers. And I think the Vikings just make one too many, and the Rams take advantage. Then in the 2-7 matchup, man, this would be insane. Bears beating the Lions. Home field advantage in the playoffs at Soldier Field in a Ben Johnson masterclass against his former team puts the Bears over the Lions for me. And then in the AFC, we have the 5-seeded Bills beating the 4-seeded Texans. CJ Stroud is just a playoff choker. That's what it comes down to there. And then in the 3-6, we have Patriots beating the Bengals. This would probably be the game of the wild card for me to watch. I think home field advantage at Gillette, plus the revenge tour after losing the Super Bowl, trying to get their lick back and finally win it. I say finally, they've won a shit ton, but you know what I mean. I think they get the narrow victory over the Bengals. And then last game of the wild card, we have 2-seeded Chiefs beating the 7-seeded Chargers. And when the Chiefs are at Arrowhead, they're not losing in the playoffs. Simple as that. Moving to the divisional, we have the 1-seeded Eagles beating the 5-seeded Seahawks. I think the Eagles are better suited to attack Seattle's holes and just win with a really good game plan. The Eagles are much harder to game plan around. I feel like we saw with the Seahawks last year in their Super Bowl run, what is able to beat them. Sorry for the hiccups. And yeah, I think the Eagles can definitely take advantage of that. Now we have the 3-seeded Rams beating the 2-seeded Bears. Again, I'm a Bears fan. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. The Rams passing game just can't be contained. We don't have the defensive quality there to contain Puka Nacua. And then, of course, Myles Garrett playoff experience finally after being in Cleveland and he's played like 1 or 2 playoff games in his career. Yeah, we need this. Myles Garrett is going to go insane. Then we have the 2-seeded Chiefs beating the 3-seeded Patriots. I think the Patriots just fail to stop Kenneth Walker here again because they failed to do that in this year's Super Bowl. Definitely a low-scoring game in this one. And then we have the 1-seeded Ravens beating the 5-seeded Bills. What a game this would be. And I just think the Bills won't be able to stop Derrick Henry, and Josh Allen makes a late game mistake, even though he's the best player in all of football. It just happens year after year. I feel like it's the Bills' curse. I just don't see this year's team being the one to break that. Conference championship, I do have the 1-seeded Eagles beating the 3-seeded Rams. I think this game is simply decided by home field advantage. Going into Philly, playing in that weather, that's brutal, man. That's brutal. If it were in LA, I'd be choosing LA. But that's just how the cookie crumbles there. And then we have the 2-seeded Chiefs beating the 1-seeded Ravens. I think this comes down to a game-winning field goal by the Chiefs. Their special devil magic that they pull off with Mahomes. Lamar, you're going to have to wait another year. And then in the Super Bowl that nobody wants to see, Chiefs-Eagles, I have the Chiefs winning. Yeah, I know, boo me, whatever. I don't want to see it either. But again, have to be unbiased, have to predict what I think is going to happen. There's going to be rigged allegations and upset fans. That's inevitable. But Mahomes is going to remind people why he's in, not the GOAT conversation, because that's Tom Brady, but the second best player of all time conversation. And of course, the script is written for Travis Kelce to retire winning a Super Bowl. And the whole Taylor Swift thing, it's going to suck, but it's going to happen. It's terrible. So as terrible as that is, I do think this year kind of marks the end of their dynasty. But they will go out on top. But I think after this year, it's over. They only got one more ring left. So those are my playoff predictions. Now we are moving to my awards predictions. These are going to be kind of rapid fire. MVP, Josh Allen. Again, simply just the best player in all of football right now. At number 2, Caleb Williams. I know you're already booing me. Hear me out. Breaks the 4,000-yard curse and proves he's the number 1 pick because he's genuinely one of the most talented players in football history. I think he'll prove why he's actually better than Drake May. If you flip their seasons around, or their careers around from drafting till now, there's not much of a difference. I think it's all name value. Either way, Caleb Williams is number 2. He's going to prove it to you that he's a top 5 QB in the league. Number 3, Lamar Jackson, back to full health, and I think he will have at least 10 rushing touchdowns this year. Number 4, we have Drake May. Then we have Jalen Hurts at number 5, just because he's going to be the QB on the team with the best record in all of football. That's it. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Mekhi Lemon. In my opinion, he's the next Zay Flowers. I think he has at least 750 yards and 6 touchdowns this season. That should be good enough to win it. At number 2, we have Jeremiah Love. Definitely a franchise running back, but I think he has an underwhelming rookie year. At number 3, we have Fernando Mendoza. He should win. I don't think he will just because he probably is going to be sitting the first 6 to 8 games or so. And then at number 4, we have Kenyon Sadiq. I think he has a similar season to Colston Loveland that he did last year. And then at number 5, we have Dejon Stribling. Very underrated wide receiver coming out of the draft. Now that preseason is happening, he's being very hyped up. You can go back and look at my NFL draft big board video. I've been all over him since the start. People are finally understanding. He's going to get a ton of receptions. In my opinion, he's kind of going to be like a Michael Wilson-esque wide receiver. Defensive Rookie of the Year is going to go to Ruben Bain. Man, he looks insane this offseason. He's going to be the new Buccaneers defensive anchor for the next decade plus. Number 2, we have Sonny Styles. He was my number 1 rated player in the draft. I think he's going to have 90-plus tackles and is probably already the best player on the Commanders' defense. And number 3, Chris Johnson. People are sleeping on him. I talked about him earlier with the Dolphins. In my opinion, he's going to end up being a better Charvarius Ward, but he should get plenty of opportunity in his rookie season on a very bad team. Number 4, we have David Bailey. I think he gets roughed up early, some welcome to the NFL moments, but then delivers during the back half of the season in a big way. And then at number 5, we have Caleb Downs. Very diverse impact, going to make some huge plays for the Cowboys. And then at Defensive Player of the Year, going to go Myles Garrett because duh. At number 2, Max Crosby. I think there's a chance he has a 17-plus sack year. Normally that would win Defensive Player of the Year, but Myles Garrett exists. And number 3, might be a surprise to some people. I'm going to go with Danielle Hunter. I think he's going to have the best year of his career because Will Anderson is going to be drawing a lot of double teams, and Danielle Hunter is still a beast. He could take advantage of that and get to the quarterback more often than he has in years past. But that doesn't mean Will Anderson is going to be bad because I have him coming in at number 4 of my Defensive Player of the Year list. Even if he gets a bunch of double teams, he's still a monster. Arguably the second best edge rusher, probably the third or fourth best in terms of true talent in the NFL. And then at number 5, I mentioned him earlier again, Devon Witherspoon. I think he will end up becoming the best cornerback in all of football this year, just got paid. And again, I try not to be biased, but love seeing my former Fighting Illini ball out in the NFL. And then Offensive Player of the Year, got to go Jahmyr Gibbs. Could have a 2,000-yard rushing season, and even if he doesn't, he's still a threat to have 1,000 yards receiving. At number 2, Bijan Robinson. Could also have a 2,000-yard rushing season as well. And then number 3 is CMC, just because when he's healthy, it doesn't matter how well he plays compared to years past. When he's healthy, he's one of the best players in all of football. He will be finishing top 5, no doubt. Number 4, we have Jamar Chase, easily the best receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. If people have Puka or Justin Jefferson or JSN over him, pump the brakes. Just pump the brakes. Number 5, Justin Jefferson. I do think he returns to prime form this year with Kyler at QB. And then we get to our Coach of the Year, where I have Jesse Minter winning it. This one's a pretty tough one to predict this year. I think he wins just because he is a new coach on a team that I think is going to win the AFC. And then at number 2, we have Andy Reid. I just think he is the best coach in all of football. Number 3, Nick Sirianni, coach of the team that has the best record. Number 4, Ben Johnson. Proves his doubters wrong, wins the division, second in the NFC once again, solidifies him being a franchise coach. And then number 5, we have DeMeco Ryans. Texans, I do think, dominate their division, and DeMeco transforms this Texans defense to the best in football. I think that's enough for him to sneak into the top 5 there. And then for Comeback Player of the Year, one of the most fun to try to predict, I do have Kyler Murray winning it. Just because he's the new QB and leads the Vikings to the playoffs going 10-7. I like that storyline. Number 2, pretty bold prediction here, I do think, is Joe Alt. Huge Joe Alt guy now. I think he ends up becoming a top 10 tackle in the league this season. That's just how good he is. And number 3, Jaden Daniels. He just balls out again. That's it. It's not going to take much for him to work his way into this top 5. And then at number 4, we have Tucker Kraft. I think he is going to be healthy for week 1, and I think he's going to have a 850 yards, 7 touchdown season, something like that, and that's definitely good enough for him to reach top 5. And then lastly, maybe this is more of a fun pick, a homer pick, just because I really like this guy. I'm going to go Tank Dell. Again, he's a special teams return demon. He's so fast, so shifty, but he can also get yards through the air. I do think he has at least 300 receiving yards. Hopefully that's enough for him to get in the top 5. But I'll definitely be watching that storyline. So there it is, my full NFL season predictions. Let me know what you guys think, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Love God, love others, love yourself. Peace.